All right, we are live on YouTube. What I will do is I will share the YouTube link for anyone who wants to watch on YouTube instead of Zoom. I will share the link with you guys in the chat so that you can access that and watch over there. I see more people have started to trickle in. Let me make sure we're recording locally so that we have a recording to upload, and then we can get the webinar started. So
Brilliant.
let's record on this computer. And that's our cue to start. So welcome everyone to this webinar about how you can speed up your sales cycle through effective customer relationship management. Most of our webinars so far have focused on marketing and customer support use cases. But I mean, especially with marketing and sales increasingly are becoming more inextricably tied to each other. In fact, I've been on webinars where we've talked about how you can't really make out the difference between marketing and sales anymore. It's hard to define where marketing ends and where sales begins. So we're going to delve into some tactics that we have seen effective at TARS and Really Simple Systems to speed up the sales process by optimizing your funnel before conversion and after conversion. So let's get started. As always, with these webinars, we like to start with intros, just so that you know who we are and where our information is coming from. I'm Arnab, the regular host of these webinars, and I am a content marketer over here at TARS. And essentially what that means is I create content like this webinar to help you guys get the most out of your marketing and sales stacks. I'm privileged to be joined today by Nick Leong, who works on the digital marketing team at Really Simple Systems. And we'll get into who Really Simple Systems is in a second over here, but welcome to the webinar, Nick. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Arnav. Just to introduce myself, so as Arnav said, my name is Nick Leong. I am a jack of all trades of digital marketing, so I host all of our webinars, or many of our webinars for Really Simple Systems, as well as do the content on the website and general website management and analytics. So it's great to be here.
Great to have you. Now, a little bit about who we are as companies hosting this webinar. I see a lot of familiar names in the audience, so I'm sure a lot of you guys know who TARS is. But for the folks who are new, TARS is a company that has been helping marketers boost their conversion rates since 2016 using conversational tech. And what we mean by that is, as you'll see in this webinar, we help folks with their lead capture and their lead qualification using chatbots. Now, when we started, we had a very simple vision in mind, our founders did, which was that we wanted to improve the way businesses and their customers interacted with each other. And we asked ourselves what the best way to do that was. And the solution that we arrived at was conversations. We built a tool to help businesses have conversations with their customers in a scalable way. And then eventually this term chatbot came about, and it started getting adopted by more and more businesses. And then we became overnight a chatbot company. The tool that we built was a chatbot tool, and we became a chatbot company that you guys know and hopefully love today. As I mentioned on the previous slide, we are being joined today by Really Simple Systems. They're co-hosting this webinar with us. I'm going to hand it over to Nick to tell you a little bit about who Really Simple Systems is and what they do.
So here at Really Simple Systems, our CRM system is designed for small and mid-sized businesses wanting a simple, easy-to-use CRM for sales, support, and marketing. Mostly because a lot of people know the big names, HubSpot, Salesforce, but they can be very complex and give companies far too much information at a very high cost. We wanted ours to offer smaller businesses who wanted the functionality of a CRM to be able to just have that, to be enabled and enable their sales, marketing without too much trouble. That's why our CRM model is great for companies with multiple locations and a remote workforce. And our philosophy is literally just based on taking complex applications and making them easy and affordable.
Awesome. Great to have you on the webinar, and great to have the expertise that you guys have developed at Really Simple Systems get shared to our audience. Now, to give you guys a little bit of a sense of what the next hour is going to look like, we've kept it simple today. We are dividing the webinar up into 4 sections. In the first section, we're going to go over a few basics. I'm going to hand it over to Nick. Nick's going to go over a few basics just so that we're all on the same page about some of the concepts that we're talking about today. Then in sections 2 and 3, we're going to talk about specific tactics you can use to optimize your sales cycle for faster closures, both pre-conversion and post-conversion. And when I'm talking about conversion here, we're primarily focusing on businesses that rely on leads, lead generation, and then converting those leads into customers. So when I'm talking about conversion here, I'm talking about lead conversion. So whether you're prospecting, whether you're running lead generation campaigns, what can you do before you capture a lead, before you get a lead in your funnel, to speed up the sales process further down, and what can you do once they're actually in the funnel in your CRM to speed the process of moving them further along in the funnel. And then in the 4th section, as always, we will open the floor up for questions and answers. I generally, off late, we've tried to keep that section as long as possible. So we'll try to wrap up our content from the first 3 sections as quickly as possible, ideally in the first 40 minutes, so that you guys have as much access to us as possible. But given that we have a lot to cover in the next hour, let's get started. The basics. I'm going to hand it over to Nick for this because this is definitely his area of expertise.
Brilliant. Cheers, Arnav. So before you can dive into speeding up your sales cycle, specifically in terms of in relation to customer relationship management, you need to first define it. So defining the sales cycle. So as we all know, a sales cycle is a process that registers all the interactions between your company and your potential customers. It can last from less than a month to upwards of over a year. So depending on the industry, product, and if the customer is new or returning. So from the first contact, which can be anything from a response to a marketing advert, a cold call pitch, or a straightforward question to your support team, your staff will be responsible for guiding customers through to the final sale. So by assessing its individual stages, you'll then be able to understand the length of your own sales cycles and where the process can be shortened to become more effective. Could you do the next slide, please, Arnav? So what are these stages? There are 7 key stages. So first is prospecting, creating a steady stream of leads, preparation, preparing for the initial contact with your potential customers, the approach, where you make first contact with your client, presentation, where you actively demonstrate how your product or service meets the needs of your potential customer, handling the objections. This is where you listen to your prospects' concerns and address them. Closing, where you finally get the decision from your client to move forward, and follow-up, where the follow-up stage keeps you in contact with customers you have closed, not only for potential repeat business, but also for referrals as well. Next slide. And just to quickly define customer relationship management, if you're unfamiliar with the term, CRM is a strategy that businesses implement to manage interactions with their customers. So it's all about investing time with your current customer base and prospects with the aim of retaining their customer as long as possible, increasing their spend, and delivering a great customer service. So,
awesome.
Back to you, Arnav.
Awesome. Yep. So I think this definition is a great place to end talking about the basics and start talking about the tactics, because by defining customer relationship management as a strategy for businesses to manage their interactions with customers, it sort of gives us a search space to look at when we're thinking about where we can implement optimizations to speed up the sales cycle overall. Now, when we're talking about interactions, we've divided the interactions up into 2 buckets in this webinar. We're talking about interactions that happen before you convert someone into a lead, so before you've prospected them or before you've gotten the lead into your funnel. And then we're talking about interactions that happen after you've gotten them into your funnel, so steps 2 through 7 over here. Now, in the first section, what we are going to talk about is the interactions that happen before someone has actually converted into a lead. Now, traditionally, people have not really, there's been a hard demarcation between marketing and sales, where you consider everything that happens before the lead enters the funnel as being the purview of marketing, and it has no bearing on sales other than the fact that the lead is coming in, and then it's coming in from marketing, and then you can work on it as a sales team. But in reality, a lot of the groundwork for closing happens before the lead has even converted, before they've shared their information with you for you to follow up with them and nurture them into an actual customer. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Increasingly, what we're finding is that people who land on websites, whether you're running ads, whether you are prospecting, whether you're doing an outreach-based approach to getting leads, increasingly what we are finding is that when people land on a page, whatever page it is, whatever landing page that you are using to inform them about your company and to capture their lead information from you, they expect you to provide them with proactive customer service grade interactions before they're willing to share their information with you. And what I mean by customer service grade interactions is they expect you to interact with them in a one-on-one personalized way. Traditionally, when you think of marketing, you think of marketing as a one-to-many sort of interaction, where you create a landing page, you run an ad on it, and that landing page is interacting with thousands of people at the same time, showing them all the exact same messaging, in the hopes that they will fill out your form and convert into a lead. But what people expect more and more is they expect that experience should be personalized, should be tailor-made to their specific needs, because obviously every person who lands on your page, they might have largely the same needs, but they do have specific requirements, or they have specific questions that might differ from other customers, and they increasingly expect you to be able to address those unique queries or those unique circumstances that they have. And that's where the customer service moniker comes in over here. When you think about customer service, which we traditionally think of as happening after someone is closed and after someone is a customer, traditionally when you do customer service, it's a one-on-one interaction where the customer is interacting with someone from your team in a one-on-one conversation to get their specific questions answered, whether they're calling a call center, whether they are having a live chat with you, whether they're interacting with you over email. Now, this is most certainly a difficult task to achieve for most businesses, because providing one-on-one customer service grade interactions to your customers before they've converted into a lead is a huge ask for most businesses, because obviously it's a very resource intensive process. But it also poses marketers and sales folks, poses businesses with an opportunity. Because if you're able to effectively deliver on the customer's expectations, if you are able to address the unique queries that they have, address the unique circumstances that each visitor to your landing page has, they'll be more likely to share information with you. And information is gold when it comes to speeding up your sales cycle, because the more information you have, the better the quality of your leads, and the easier it is for you to optimize your sales cycle further down in the funnel. This is something we see ourselves at TARS. When we are able to collect more information from our customers at the lead capture stage of the buyer journey, it's a lot easier for us to serve them. It's a lot easier for us to score them further down in the funnel. And because it's easier for us to score them, it's easier for us to figure out who we should follow up with, who we shouldn't follow up with, and allocate our effort accordingly. It's a lot easier for us to nurture them because we have a little bit more information about them. We know what pieces of content to send them, what pieces of content might not be relevant to them. And that helps us see better results in our email sequences, for example. And then finally, it also makes it easier for us to close them, because again, we know what sorts of assets we can share with them before jumping on a sales call with them. We can figure out what sorts of questions we should prepare for, what sorts of demos we pull up. So more information generally leads to better lead quality, and better lead quality, as you'll see with the tactics that Nick is going to talk about, results in a faster sales cycle further down in the buyer journey, further down in the funnel. Now, the natural next question is, how do we do this? So what I did for today's webinar, rather than just leaving you with this sort of high level approach to speeding up your sales cycle by optimizing your lead capture, I've actually come up with two tactics. And if you've attended our previous webinars, these will look familiar to you, but they are just as applicable over here. The first tactic is to make your lead capture conversational. And what I mean by that is, instead of relying on your traditional forms, shifting to a method of lead capture that feels like the customer is having a one-on-one conversation with someone. And the reason for this is simple. People don't like filling out forms. In fact, there have been studies on this exact problem, and what researchers have found is that for each additional form field that you add to your lead capture form, when you're trying to collect more information from your customers, your potential customers, it can reduce your conversion rate from anywhere between 8 to 50%. Now, that's an issue because obviously you are trying to strike a balance between collecting more information from people, but also getting enough leads into your funnel. So while you are trying to get more information from people at the top of the funnel, you don't want that to come at the cost of your lead volume each month. So another way of thinking about this is that your lead capture forms are literally losing you money, because as you try to adapt your lead capture forms for efficiency further down in the funnel, they are losing you potential customers who would have otherwise shared their information with you. Now, the solution to this, as I mentioned, is to make the lead capture experience feel more conversational. So what a lot of our customers do is they get rid of their forms altogether and they replace their forms with lead capture chatbots. Now, what a lead capture chatbot is essentially, you can think of it as a conversational form where instead of sharing the information with the company through form fields, you share it through a chat conversation. So when you signed up for this webinar, for example, when you were signing up for it, you did not fill your email out in a form. You filled your email out in a chat conversation with a chatbot. That's exactly what I'm talking about over here. Now, to a lot of people, this might seem like a cosmetic change, but if you think about how the interaction is being framed, it sort of gets back at that point I was making earlier about people expecting that personal one-on-one customer service grade interaction at the top of the funnel. By collecting information through a chat interface instead of a form interface, what you are doing is you are converting a boring, bureaucratic form filling experience into a one-on-one conversation with someone or other something from your business. And the effect of that is that you're able to collect more information from them. So in most other webinars, when we talk about this, the value that we talk about is you see an increase in your conversion rate. People are more likely to stay on the chat conversation than they are a form, and they're more likely to actually share their information. And that increases your lead volume, which is obviously a good thing. But in the context of speeding up your sales cycle, what it also means is that because people are more likely to stay in the conversation and because they're more likely to complete the lead generation process, because the experience is more engaging, for lack of a better term, they're more willing to share more information with you because you have more of their attention now. They're willing to spend more time on your page. So you can ask for more details in that time, and they are more likely to actually share those details. I think I used more at least 10 times in that last sentence. But the end result of that is you have more information to work with in your CRM to do things like nurture your leads, score them, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the second tactic that I want to talk about today is breaking your reliance on FAQ pages. So generally, the approach that people have taken, marketers have taken to converting leads is you throw as much information as you can onto your landing page, as much information, all of the information that you think a prospect wants to know about onto your landing page, in the hopes that the prospect will read through that information, figure out what's applicable to them, and then convert. They'll share their email with you, send that email to your CRM because you provided them with the information that they wanted. But that's not actually how prospects work. People don't particularly like to read. They especially don't like to read from start to finish. What most people do is they skim. And if they can't find the information that they are looking for quickly enough, they are likely going to drop. Now, this is an issue because if people can't find the information that they are looking for, that is less information for them to go off of when they're making a buying decision. In a lot of situations, what happens with prospects is that they land on a page, they have a question that's preventing them from hitting submit on your lead capture form. They maybe have a question about your pricing. They maybe have a question about how your specific product or how your specific services work, that's preventing them from actually pulling the trigger and hitting submit. But they can't find that information on your page. And because they can't find that information on your page, they think that you don't address their individual query or their individual circumstances, and then they drop from the page, which is obviously a problem for you. Now, the solution to this is to break your reliance on the traditional methods that we use on these pages to address these questions that people have. So FAQ sections are the one that I've picked out because they are almost ubiquitous across landing pages today. FAQ sections, I mean, in theory, they should address the common questions that people have. But what they end up doing is they just create a wall of text on your page that no one's actually reading through. So the solution is to get rid of your FAQ pages altogether. And again, since we are a conversational tech company, you can make your FAQ sections conversational. So instead of having an FAQ section that people read through and find the question that applies to them, what you do is you take the same information and you put it in a conversational flow behind a chatbot. The person lands on the chatbot, they ask their question, and then the chatbot pulls the appropriate response and sends it back to them. Now, this way, the information hierarchy is flipped. Instead of having to read through all of the information on their own, the customer is able to ask their question and only see the information that pertains to that question. And that makes them more likely to read the actual information that you are sending them. Now, from a sales perspective, when we're thinking about how this speeds up the sales cycle, one way you can think about it is that if you are getting more information into the heads of your leads before they enter your CRM, that's fewer questions that you have to answer when they actually enter your funnel. So if they already know what your pricing is like, if they already have all of the questions that are specific to their business or specific to their industry answered before they enter the sales cycle, that makes the jobs of your sales reps easier because they get stuck on fewer email threads where they're answering basic questions that were already there on the landing page or already there on your website. They're stuck on fewer calls where they're answering, again, the same questions that every single lead asks. And that makes it easier for them to shepherd them to closure, where they become a customer. And that, I think, is a good place for me to stop. I think we're making good time over here. I want Nick to have enough time to go through his tactics because I know he has a bunch of them. So at this point of the buyer journey, if we're looking at it from the perspective of a lead, of a potential customer, they've landed on your page, they've gotten their questions answered about your products or your services, and they've shared their information with you. Now that information has gone into your CRM, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you can optimize your processes once that lead is in your CRM to get them to closure quicker.
Brilliant. Thanks, Arnav. So CRM systems are all about enabling your business and enabling your teams. So a lot of what I'm going to go through today, it can be broken down into three. First is design, having the CRM design or the right system chosen for your business. Then key features to look out for speeding up your sales cycle, and then just some key CRM best practice. So Arnav, would you mind doing the next slide? There we go. So CRM software, like many buzzwords, the term now stands for pretty much whatever each CRM vendor wants it to. So it could be systems for salespeople, which is key for today, like Salesforce automation or opportunity management. For marketing people, where it's marketing automation and campaign management. As Arnav said, they're starting to merge into one, especially with how the software changes. Or even help desks for customer service and support, email, voice logging, and so on. But the first step for your sales cycle strategy is assuring that you're using the right CRM for your business. Next slide, please, Arnav. So a good CRM system will have features like helping salespeople manage and close your opportunities, giving sales managers a complete view of your pipeline from start to finish and to automate your sales forecasting, safeguard the ownership of your sales pipeline. Let's make sure that your organization has a full picture of your sales process. Let's provide a complete picture of every customer that you interact with, or for those who need it in your organization, such as management. Run and track the effectiveness of marketing campaigns and how they've been fed back into the system, as well as generally just providing better service for your customers. When looking at these options, not quite yet, Arnav. When looking at these options, many of you will answer, I want all of the above, or you will want to have some of the sales features and marketing ones. If that's the case, then it's best to start with the sales process and bring the rest online afterwards. Why? Because marketing and support teams are generally well-disciplined people, used to and happy to accept automation. And they know that their tasks can't be achieved with some form of system. Salespeople, on the other hand, are perfectly capable of making a sale without a CRM system, so their cooperation cannot be taken for granted. Design your system or choose a system that makes their lives easier, because having every feature under the sun doesn't mean you'll be speeding up your sales process. Next slide, please, Arnav. So that leads me to keeping it simple. So for salespeople to use a CRM fully and to speed up your sales cycle, it must be both useful to them and easy to use. So I can't reiterate enough, don't make the design too complicated. The more complicated the design is, the more fields you add to each screen. The more screens they have to go through to add a contact, the more barriers to a successful CRM adoption you will have erected. So every extra field you ask your salespeople to complete, especially the mandatory ones, the greater the chance that salespeople will enter garbage, leave fields unentered, or just simply use the system under duress. Will I say, take Leonardo da Vinci's motto, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication to heart. Start with the minimum design and not the ultimate. Get people using the system. So make sure as many fields as possible have sensible defaults. Make sure that the key fields you wish to capture, like marketing source, are shown on standard reports. So if they're not completed, it is evident to you. Once you have design in place and the backing of your sales system, it's now time to consider the features you need to speed up your sales process. And in this case, and the topic today, you're going to be looking at Salesforce automation. So next slide, Arnav. Brilliant. So what is Salesforce automation? SFA is the name for a suite of software that is given to salespeople to help them sell. It includes either contact management or opportunity management together, sometimes with email and calendaring. Next slide, please. The objective of these features is to save you and your sales team's time. So as an example, statistically, your sales reps spend 20% of their time writing emails and 17% on researching leads. With the implementation of SFA, your mundane mechanical tasks will be done by software automation, so your reps can commit to high value issues that can only be solved by a human. So I've got a couple of extra benefits of SFA. So first is task management. So with task management, when you create a task or a reminder in a customer's account, it will integrate with your calendar. So when a sales member or a user opens up a task, all of the customer's data and past communications will be there in front of you. Once that task is completed, it's automatically added to account record, creating a complete history of all of your company interactions. This will help your team save time by not having to check sales progress through multiple areas, and it makes them appear more professional to prospects as they're always in the know. Onto team collaboration. So a final key incentive for Salesforce automation is team collaboration. The software has really come into its own with the arrival of cloud technology back in the early 20s. Accessing a CRM system through your internet browser means that you can retrieve data wherever you are and see the latest updates. You can have multiple users accessing and editing a customer's data at any one time, and you can create a hub for your business with all your data in one place. This is particularly useful if you want to have a remote workforce. So sales professionals working from home or on the road can log in and see the same information as their colleagues in the head office. So there's no need to synchronize the data as everything is updated in real time. So now I've gone through CRM design and SFA being a key feature to look out for. I've got some key tactics on how you can use CRM best practice to speed up your sales cycle. So starting with scoring your leads. So Arnav's touched on this a little bit, but evaluating leads as you come in will help accelerate your sales pipeline. So the more information you have, the better qualified they will be. And if a lead is of serious interest, an immediate need for your product or service, and has the authority to make the decision and allocate a budget for it, you can say it's a well-qualified, high-scoring lead, and it should be ushered into your CRM pipeline immediately. However, spending time on leads isn't enough to just accelerate the sales cycle. You need to spend your time with the right leads. That way you avoid jamming your pipeline with deals that aren't ready. And you really need to put qualified leads that are actually expected to move through your sales process to really get the right results. So if you do this, your pipeline will be tighter. And with only quality opportunities in the pipeline, your sales reps will spend less time chasing junk and more time actually working in lead deals, speeding up your sales cycle. So this leads me on to number 2, which is nurture the leads that aren't ready. If you wouldn't mind, there we go. So studies have found that 61% of B2B marketers send all leads directly to sales. A similar statistic is for B2C, but this practice slows down the sales process because your sales pipeline tracking is difficult when unqualified leads are entered into the mix. The same study explains that only 27% of leads are actually qualified. Again, you really don't want to clog your pipeline with leads that aren't ready to buy. Instead, use your data you've gathered to create a separate list of casual browsers and those who you don't expect to purchase in the foreseeable future. These clients that should be seen as leads that need to be nurtured. This will speed up your sales cycle because, again, it frees up your sales team to focus on the well-qualified leads. And number 3. So ensure you have a well-defined sales process. So early on in your sales process, your business should be identifying potential pain points and obstacles which may be preventing sales. So again, research has shown that companies with a well-defined sales process show 18% more revenue than companies with an informal one. So what your process should be doing is mirroring your buyer's process, each step showing incremental commitment. To define a good sales process and gain this incremental commitment, sales managers need to commit the time to discuss the pipeline with their frontliners. So it's really good to communicate with your own staff. And this is very similar to number 4, which is managing your pipeline with CRM. An obvious one, as we're on the topic today, but a well-defined sales process, sales managers need to carefully manage the pipeline, an activity which is more that simply an activity which is simply more than looking at reports. Your sales pipeline management is about reviewing the pipeline and asking, what can I do differently today to win more deals? While sales pipeline tracking produces reports, sales pipeline management allows your teams to drill down into the numbers to see where your actions can accelerate your cycle. Speaking of drilling down the numbers, number 5 is coaching your sales reps. So this is really important, but using your CRM reports to understand and analyze the data you find gives sales managers the information needed to coach. Good sales isn't about passing a sales rep in the hall and saying, how are things going? Or saying, let's get out there and make more sales, even if you do it in a really enthusiastic voice. good coaching is about drilling down into your data and your CRM pipeline reports with your reps and planning specific steps to deal in the pipeline. So 6. As we've already touched on, sales reps need the freedom and time to get on with their sales. So the average person checks their email 30 times per hour. Whilst being a fast way to communicate with your prospects, emails are also a time vampire. They suck away your precious time that could be spent with customers. And in fact, research has shown that composing and answering emails can take up nearly 28 hours per week. Sales are made when reps get to spend time with their customers instead of on admin duties. So to spend less time on email, train your sales department to schedule specific times to check and respond to emails. It's always amazing to see how many more deals salespeople can close when actually spending their time on selling. And for my final point, again, we've already touched on this with Salesforce automation and with Arnav's chat, but automate wherever possible. So look at your various stages of your CRM pipeline and decide which tasks can and should be automated. Automating sales activities helps both in lead scoring and improving the sales process, so ensuring that your leads are not ignored or forgotten. When automating lead nurturing activities such as email campaigns and follow-ups, users for really simple systems have shown a 15% increase in sales productivity. So just to sum up what I've just gone through, accelerating the, next slide, Arnav. Just one more. There we go. So accelerating the sales cycle is about knowing which leads to enter into the CRM pipeline and which leads to nurture. This acceleration is also about defining your company's sales process, coaching your reps, and managing the sales pipeline. The final key to achieving the sales cycle speed you're after is finding time-saving ways to help your sales team have more time with their customers. So yeah, back to you, Arnav.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Nick. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I haven't worked I haven't worked at all in sales, but I definitely learned a lot. With that, I think we are done with the content for this webinar, the main content for this webinar. And I think we have about 20 minutes. So we're right on time for questions and hopefully answers as well. So if you guys have any questions for us, now would be the time to drop them in the chat or in the Q&A section. We'd be more than happy to answer them for you. If you have any questions about the slides, if you have any questions about our products, if you have any questions about us, you can ask them right now. If you think of any questions, if you do have to head out and you think of any questions after the webinar is over, you have our contact details on the screen right now. You can use them to reach out to us, to ask us whatever questions you think of, and we'd be more than happy to respond to you. But for now, I guess Nick and I will just wait in case you guys have any questions for the next couple of minutes. And if you don't, that's also fine. I guess we just did a great job with the webinar and explained everything as well as we could. And we can end the webinar early today. Yep, and my colleague Abhilash is sharing some valuable resources for you guys in the chat. If you guys want to book a demo with us to learn more about any of the stuff that I was talking about, there's a link in the chat for you guys to do so.
Yeah, same here. If you have any questions about CRM systems, you can get me on my email, which is on the screen, or visit our website and we can start a conversation.
All right. I'm going to give it another couple of minutes here for the questions, but if we don't have any, we'll end this early, and then we can all get on with our days. Or I guess for you, your evening.
It's nearly 6 o'clock here, so I think I might just walk my dog. We've got typical English weather. We're middle of summer, so the next 5 days are due a heavy rain.
Perfect.
So yeah, got to make the most of it while it's still quite nice.
Honestly, after having lived in Los Angeles, having been in Los Angeles for the past year with the quarantine, now that I'm on the East Coast for a little bit, I have never been so happy to see clouds in my life.
This year has just been so extreme for weather in the UK.
Yeah.
We had an incredibly sunny and yet extremely cold April, followed by the wettest May ever recorded, followed by a mixed June. So
Yeah.
we just don't know what to expect.
Yeah. It seems like
Um,
the weather's crazy pretty much everywhere in the world.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it looks like we might not be having many questions today.
That's all right. So I think what I can do is I can close out the webinar right now. Quick logistical note before we end the webinar, we will be sending you a recording of the webinar. We just put it up on the same web page where you signed up for the webinar. We also put up the slides for you guys to check out, but we will send it out through an email after the webinar is done. Just takes a little bit for Zoom to process the recording. But if you do want to watch it immediately, we did live stream this onto YouTube. So if you go to our YouTube channel, just look up Tara's Chatbots on YouTube. You should be able to access the entire recording over there almost immediately after the webinar is done. In fact, my colleague Abhilash has shared the YouTube link with you guys again in the chat. So click on that YouTube link, and in a couple of minutes after I end this call, the recording should be ready. But that's it from us today. Thank you guys for joining. You've been a great audience, listened attentively. And thank you, Nick, for joining us today as a co-host. It was an absolute pleasure having you on. We learned
Thank you,
a lot.
Anna. Thank you for organising everything and
Of
kicking
course.
it off.
Of course. Well, catch us on our next webinar. I think we're hosting one next Tuesday about WhatsApp chatbots. So if you live in a market where WhatsApp is big, be sure to join us for our webinar next Tuesday. Thanks everyone for joining, and